What caused the deadliest conflict in human history? Was it just about territorial control or something much darker? Imagine a world plunged into chaos, countries torn apart, over 60 million people dead, and yet no one saw it coming. Or did they? In the years leading up to World War II, world leaders failed to see the storm brewing. But there were signs, plenty of them. The question is, why did no one stop it? What if I told you that the outbreak of World War II wasn't just about borders? What if the fate of the entire world rested on one decision? Stick with me as we break down the shocking truth behind the origins of World War II and how this conflict changed the world in ways that still affect us today. Let's get started.
It is difficult to track down one single event that sparked the conflict.
That the settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is, in my view, only the prelude to a larger settlement in which all Europe may find peace.
Let's start our story with the year 1919. The whole world is against Hitler and Hitlerism. This was the year the First World War ended. Then a famous peace treaty was signed, known as the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty had an essential clause, Article 231. It stated that all the deaths that occurred during the First World War were Germany's responsibility. This clause is also known as the War Guilt Clause. This statement basically said that this war was only the fault of Germany, no matter which country was involved. Of course, France and Britain wanted Germany to pay a heavy price for losing the war. They wanted Germany to pay for all their losses. As a result, Germany was required to pay a fine of $33 billion to the rest of the countries under the Treaty of Versailles. In today's money, that's $270 billion. This amount is so much that you will not believe it. In 2010, Germany made the last payment of this money. It took almost 100 years. And where do you think this money comes from? Of course, it came from the people of Germany. The first installment of these fines was made in 1921, soon after a severe inflation occurred in Germany. The German currency at the time was the Deutsche Mark. It sinks so fast you won't believe it. In the year 1922, the cost of a packet of bread in Berlin was 160 marks. In the year 1923, the cost of the same packet of bread is 200 billion marks. It is clear that the economy has collapsed and unemployment has risen. In this way, Adolf Hitler enters our history, a young political leader who knew how to mislead people with his speeches. In 1923, Hitler's Nazi Party attempted to overthrow the German government in a coup, but although the attempt failed, Hitler's popularity among the people increased as a result. Rumors are spreading among people that Germany's suffering and international humiliation were due to internal enemies, anti-national elements within the country. It is easy to mislead people. Hitler says that it is the fault of the Jews and the communities that live in the country. Germany's reputation has been ruined by them. Advertising will be widely used in the next 10 years. Media has been purchased. Horrible news is revealed. 1929 also saw the Great Depression. Because of this, unemployment worsens. In 1933, 6 million people were unemployed in Germany. Many people are homeless. Children die of hunger. Therefore, in 1933, Hitler declared himself the dictator of Germany. After taking full control, Hitler decided to realize the dream of the German Empire. It was a German Reich state, and the people were pure. Only the Aryan people live here. This is not a site for Jews and Slavic peoples. A Jewish Bolshevism conspiracy theory was created to sow hatred between people. According to this conspiracy theory, the Russian Revolution of 1917 was orchestrated by Jews. This is why the Soviet Union was created. In 1935, the rest of the world learned that Germany had its air force. What's the problem, you ask? Each country has its air force. However, in the Treaty of Versailles, it was written that Germany could not have its army. Hitler violated the Treaty of Versailles. But at this time, many British people felt that what was written in the Treaty of Versailles was very bad for Germany. They get a lot of money. For this reason, check the condition of your country. And it is also written that the country cannot have an army of its own. We should not do this. In June 1935, Great Britain signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement. Accordingly, it is known that Hitler had the right to build his navy. Germany can have its navy. But after seeing the increasing German army, France was beginning to wake up. France builds fortifications of 450 kilometers long. It is called the Maginot Line. In 1938, when Hitler saw that his army was ready, He first looked at Austria. Austria was a legitimate country for Hitler. He wanted all German-speaking countries to be one country. The real goal here is not to conquer other countries for their pride, also using the resources of other countries for the development of their country. Those people that Hitler considered a superior race, his Aryan people, wanted to give them Lebensraum, a place to live so they could live freely. In February 1938, Hitler met with Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg. The agreement is signed by force. According to this agreement, Hitler gave pro-Nazis a place in the Austrian government. The Austrian government stepped in by establishing its people. For example, Dr. Hans Fischberg. He should be Austria's new finance minister. He is a Nazi, and he released all the Nazis in prison. Within a month, everything was out of control. The Chancellor of Austria thinks that if we want to prevent assimilation, why not ask the people if Austria wants to be an independent country or join the Nazis? A national election should be held on this. When news of the national election reached Hitler, Hitler immediately took his army and marched into Austria. The German army enters the city of Vienna. The Austrian governor did not want to shed blood. He left the place. Through his propaganda, Hitler spread lies that there were riots in Vienna and that the communists were responsible for the riots. That is why the Austrian government called its army to defend the country. The next day, the Austrian parliament was dissolved and Austria was no longer an independent country. This attack succeeds without blood. This is a big issue. Many people in Austria were Hitler supporters because they were also rejected by propaganda. They thought Hitler's invasion was a good thing. In this way, the country becomes a great power. Austria has been occupied, and Hitler's eyes are on the next country, Czechoslovakia. There is a region on the border with Czechoslovakia called Sudetenland. Of the people who live here, about 300,000 are German. Hitler rejected this statement and said that this territory should be ours, because the Germans live here. Here is the story of British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. He didn't want another war at any cost. He believed that if they gave Hitler what he wanted, there would be no war. For this reason, the Munich Agreement was signed in September 1938.
That the settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is, in my view, only the prelude to a larger settlement in which all Europe may find peace.
Therefore, the territory of the Sudetenland had to be ceded to Germany. But on the other hand, Hitler promised that there would be no war there. Hitler happily took this part of Czechoslovakia. But this Munich Agreement was broken in less than a year. In March 1939, Hitler took his army and invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia. For the first time, there is a small battle here, but the German army won easily. The land was divided into two parts. Part of the country was part of German territory, and a Nazi client state was created. A puppet government is created, Slovakia. British Prime Minister Chamberlain has many criticisms of this issue. As Winston Churchill famously said, "This time you are given the choice between war and glory. You chose shame and the will to fight." Hitler's eyes are on the ground next. Poland. As leader of Poland, Hitler quietly signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. In 1939, at first glance, Hitler may seem hostile to the Soviet Union and the communists. How did he do it? The reason for this is the invasion of Poland. The Soviet Union also wanted a part of Poland. Therefore, in this situation, the interests of both countries were protected. On September 1st, 1939, approximately 10,000 German troops began to move into Poland. They planned to attack north and south. At this time, the rest of the countries were shocked. Great Britain and France think this crosses the line. If Hitler stays in country after country, the next number will come to us. What will happen to the world? We can't take it anymore. Britain gives Hitler an ultimatum. If we attack Poland, we will declare war on Germany. Hitler ignores this ultimatum. For this reason, Great Britain officially declared war on Germany. France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada declare war on Germany. British Prime Minister Noel Chamberlain in a radio message.
A state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
But this time World War II didn't start here. All these countries declared war on Germany, but none of them supported troops against Poland. Poland's army is very old. They still used horses in their armies. They could not resist the German military strategies. Britain and France could not save them. About 13,000 people were mobilized by Poland, but in less than a week, the German army defeated them. On September 8, 1939, German forces occupied Poland, a good reference for Hitler's war strategy. It was called Blitzkrieg. With the help of this, Hitler invaded many countries. It was a military strategy that focused on speed and stealth. We attack other lands in tanks so that others don't have time to think. Then came our Air Force, called the Luftwaffe, and the attack happened with lightning speed. The word Blitz means lightning in German. Hitler's focus was on fighting small wars. Wars will end. It's not a week. To sustain a thunderous attack, the German soldiers resort to drugs. You heard that right. A drug called Pervitin is common. Today we know it as crystal meth. When you drink this medicine, you will not feel tired. You don't need to sleep at night. You will feel less hungry and thirsty. It will hurt less. Then you will gain extra confidence. Giving such medicine to the soldiers is very beneficial, even if it is harmful to their health in the long run. But in the short term, winning this match is very beneficial. The soldiers on the other side are wasting time sleeping at night, but German soldiers can finish the job in 2 to 3 days. In the story, you will see the success of the Blitzkrieg strategy for Germany. When he returned to Poland, Hitler did not seize it. On the other hand, the Soviets attacked again. After the defeat, Poland was divided into 2 parts. Half went to Nazi Germany and half to the Soviet Union. The Soviets thought this area belonged to the Soviets before the Russian Revolution. That's why they're right. But from the Soviet point of view, there was one country that was part of the Russian Empire before 1917. Finland. Stalin feared that Germany would invade Finland, and Stalin did not trust Hitler. The main problem was that Leningrad, where Stalin lived, was only 50 kilometers from the Finnish border. If Finland had been occupied by Nazi Germany, it would have been very close to Stalin's hometown. That's why before Hitler came to take over Finland, the Soviet Union told Finland to give its territory to Finland. Finland agreed. So the Soviet Union started war against Finland in November 1939. It was an unequal war. The Soviet Union had a larger army than Finland. They have better equipment, but this battle lasted more than 2 months, and the Soviet Union could not advance. Finally, in March 1940, this war ended and the peace treaty was signed. Therefore, Finland gave 11% of its land to the Soviet Union. At that time, Hitler did not look at Finland. He looked at Norway and Denmark. In April 1940, Hitler planned how he would take over Norway and Denmark. On April 9, 1940, Hitler used his Blitzkrieg strategy to attack Norway and Denmark. This match didn't last long. 2 small countries. How can they compete with the German army? The Norwegian government fled to London and became a government in exile. Hitler established a pro-Nazi puppet government in Norway. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain conceded defeat. He was unable to save many countries from the Nazi invasion. Therefore, he resigned on May 10, 1940, from the position of Prime Minister. The responsibility of sitting in the Prime Minister's chair has now been given to the legendary Winston Churchill. On the same day, May 10th, Hitler attacked France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This post is all about war. Everyone knew that Hitler would not stop. At the beginning of the video, I told you how France built the Maginot Line in fear of Hitler invading their country, and they began to build a wall in the area. Now the French soldiers stand by this wall to save their country, and Austria was determined by the victory of the British Empire. Military forces will be stationed on the border with Belgium and Luxembourg to save these countries. Hitler used his trademark Blitzkrieg strategy, more than 1,000 fighter bombers on the ground, about 30,000 people in the German army for this outbreak. This war was the Battle of France. The German army was divided into 3 groups, A, B, and C. Team B's mission is to attack the Netherlands. Then he went to Belgium and fought the army. Group C's mission was to attack the Maginot Line. And you ask, what is Group A's plan? Group A has a real plan. Group C's attack on the Maginot Line is only a distraction so that Group A can secretly formulate their master plan. Enter France through the Jordanian forest. This forest is a huge forest, which military experts believe is like a palace. The German army will never go through this forest because it is too difficult. They did not expect that the German army would march directly through this forest. With over 40,000 military vehicles, Group A entered through this forest. On May 15, 1940, they captured Sedana and moved north. The English and French troops fighting Group B in Belgium were shocked to see a large army coming after them. These soldiers were surrounded on 3 sides by the Nazi army. There is only one way to escape, to the sea, near the port of Dunkirk, and there he made plans to escape. What happens at Dunkirk is a turning point in history. The problem was that nearly 400,000 American soldiers were stranded on the beaches of Dunkirk. When I use the word friends, I mean the British and French armies. Countries that fought against Hitler are called allies. Those who fought against Hitler were called the Axis powers, so it is very important to save these soldiers in time because the Nazi army is moving fast. There is no way to escape. Only by sea can evacuation be done. If they didn't act in time, 400,000 soldiers would have died here. This came as a shock to Britain and France. They may lose their land forever. Winston Churchill drew up a plan to evacuate these troops. On May 26, 1940, the Dynamo operation began. This is the largest evacuation in the history of the army. The German army had almost reached the beach and opened fire on the soldiers. From the air, the German Air Force attacked the coast. The British Air Force protects the army soldiers by covering them. Second, there are some private fishing boats at English Station. These are just civilians helping to evacuate. Third, the story of Dunkirk is about people trying to save themselves and help each other. On June 4, 1940, approximately 350,000 soldiers were evacuated. You may have seen the movie. But the bad news is that most of the army's military equipment will be lost in this flight. A few days later, on June 22, 1940, France surrendered to Hitler. Meanwhile, the people of Italy, ruled by a dictator named Mussolini, allied themselves with Hitler against France. The alliance between Italy and Germany is known as the Pact of Steel. These two countries declare war against France and Great Britain on June 10th. By July 1940, Hitler was in control of nearly every country in his vicinity: Austria, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, France. Currently, there are only 3 large countries left in Europe: Hitler's Germany, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. There is a peace treaty between Germany and the Soviet Union, so Hitler had nothing to fear from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union would never attack Germany. England is the only country standing against Germany. You may ask, what about America? America did not participate in World War II. America has left, because after what happened in the First World War, America said that I have no interest. Anything to do with Europe, I stay away from here. So it is clear that if the war ends now, Hitler will have won the war. Hitler had great power. So how would the situation change if England could beat Germany? Let's talk about this story in the next video. During the second phase of World War II, I know what you're thinking. Are you thinking what I'm saying? Don't worry. Next video will soon upload. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you very much.